Like Daredevil, I too can come out in the daytime. Yes, we got daytime Daredevil. But I gotta say, I'm really surprised that we only have 2 episodes left this season because it feels like the storyline has barely moved forward. I mean, sure, we got Matt back in the suit, although I never really felt like he was out of the suit. I felt like because they didn't have really compelling, except episode 5, they didn't have really compelling stories with him out of it. But anyway, he's back in the suit. I guess Fisk has established his anti-vigilante task force, right? But how do you feel? I still don't feel like that much has happened. I think a lot of people have, usually it takes about an hour or so for Daredevil Born Again to trend on Twitter. That happened to me before. I was like, oh, the show's not trending. But then, at around 11 o'clock, it would. It didn't trend at all last night. I didn't see it trending at all. I think people were distracted by the Warner Brothers CinemaCon panel that ended up being a huge disappointment. But yeah, I think the show is just too slow. Again, not enough is happening. Where's Frank? We know he's going to come back, and I guess he'll return for the season finale. Maybe the last 2 episodes, maybe. I think the show desperately needs him. And I think what really particularly made me feel this way this episode was how quickly Muse's story was wrapped up. I appreciate that in the end, he became the artwork. I see what you did there. But I had a very hard time believing he was actually dead because the show spent so much time building him up. And then just like that, he was gone. I mean, I guess that's sometimes the way it works, but it wasn't very satisfying from a audience perspective. Although I also think that for his final episode, Muse, the wheels came off of his story rather quickly. From the very sloppy way that it was established that he knew Taekwondo, he killed his instructor as a boy. He was forced to take the lessons. Where's my flashback origin story episode? I mean, come on. Also, he has rich parents, do tell. Were they perhaps at Fisk's fundraiser? Was it that annoying woman who threatened Fisk? Could she be Mama Muse? Make an effort here. The dots are there. You're just not connecting them, which I think makes it even more frustrating. At this point, I think Vincent D'Onofrio's Fisk and Ayat Zur's Vanessa are really doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this show. Because, it was pretty obvious that she was setting Luca up. But why did Luca go by himself? What mob boss personally takes out his enemies? That's the whole point of rising to mob boss. You don't have to do that stuff anymore. But that shot of Fisk in the restaurant, beautiful. Some real Godfather, Goodfellas type stuff. And Fisk looked not only big, but also elegant. He is truly evolving. I just really loved it. He looked very good in that suit. I was like, Vincent D'Onofrio should ask to take that suit home. And I knew someone was going to take Luca out first, although they waited till very much the last minute. I guess that just shows what a boss Fisk is, that he didn't flinch. But I didn't guess that it would be Fisk's personal aide, Buck, who did it. Ooh, Wesley, you've been replaced, but you've been replaced very well. And I didn't track where Buck would be located. He was truly in the shadows. Another shot that I loved was at Fisk's press conference about defeating Muse. It was a lie. Muse was defeated, but Fisk didn't do that. We'll talk about it in a moment. But the reason that I liked this shot so much was because of Powell, who looked exactly like he was drawn by comic book artist Javier Pulido, who's, by the way, I was looking him up and his references are, I forget the name of the artist who often worked with Frank Miller in his early years, David something, but also Steve Rude, 2 of my favorite comic book artists. So no wonder I like Pulido's work so much. But Pulido has drawn a lot of New York City street level superhero adventures, from Hawkeye to She-Hulk. And on his She-Hulk run, Daredevil was a guest star. So to see Powell there looking exactly like Javier Pulido had drawn him, it just gave me chills. It was amazing. I was like, oh, comic book status achieved. And it reminded me of what this show could be. And sometimes gets close to becoming, but it's frustrating how often it's not that. Buck Cashman, aka Bullet, is from the comics, but he never had any flourish. When Fisk was talking about his past, I was like, ooh, what's his past? Is he a cool character, a cool villain? No. But still, Fisk works best when he has a strong support system. Vanessa, I loved at the restaurant when he was like, ask Vanessa if she wants me to bring any takeout home for her. I thought that was great. And then he had Wesley and now Buck, who, Wesley had his qualities, but Buck is also a trained government agent gone rogue. I only know that because I looked up Buck Cashman from the comics. I think they could establish Buck a little bit better on this show. But it's nice to see that Fisk taking shape again. The holy trinity of Kingpin, right? He has himself and those two people at his side. It's been rough for Fisk. Daredevil really did a number on him, not only unnerving him by getting to him personally. He beat the crap out of Fisk, remember? That's why I think Fisk has saved that painting that we saw from the trailer down below in his man cave. But also, he dismantled his criminal empire, as Fisk discusses here. But I think there's a new element between the two of them, and that Daredevil is now competition for Fisk. Fisk wants to be the city's hero, and since Daredevil doesn't give press conferences, he still can be. As he, again, as we just discussed, takes credit for Daredevil's takedown of Muse. B.B. York tries to set the record straight, but Donald Blake, getting his Kingpin Jr. on, offers her a choice. A real carrot and stick situation, he says. And he also says he'd be so stoked, if she made the right call. These were great lines, absolutely butchered by Michael Gandolfini, who is either not a very good actor or horribly miscast in the role. I have to say, I saw a red carpet interview of him the other day, and I thought he was quite charming. So I think that element is not translating into this role. So I think perhaps for Michael Gandolfini's next role, he should try and find something that perhaps better suits him. And we'll see what BB decides to do. I'm frustrated that her role is so small and she has so little agency. Like, why don't we see her making these reports and making the decision to report it, especially considering how awesome her uncle, his run was on season 1. Just like Trump, Fisk is using his legitimate and substantial power to go after his personal enemies and further his personal interests. And of all the Hollywood explorations of Trump, serious and satirical, and there have been many at this point, and more are coming, I'm sure, I would say The Apprentice, which was Oscar nominated for its 2 leads, but also Daredevil Born Again are the most nuanced takes. I think very strong. And they're doing, I think, good exploratory work. What do you think? Now, I gotta say, while I've been enjoying the Batman parallels on this show, this episode, they got a little too close for comfort. I mean, obviously, Daredevil draws inspiration from Batman, and legendary comic book writer and artist Frank Miller did a lot to reestablish both characters and take them to the height of their popularity. Across 3 seasons, though, of Daredevil on Netflix, and reading plenty of Daredevil comics, even the Miller ones, I have never felt that Daredevil was a ripoff of Batman. They still felt like their own distinct characters. But this episode, I thought Daredevil was, getting a little bit too Batman-y for my liking. Since when does Daredevil work so closely with the police or retired police? By the way, speaking of close for comfort, in the comics, the Batman comics these days, Jim Gordon is retired and working with Batman as a private detective. They've tried to retire Jim before. I don't really think it works, but the artwork is so good on those Batman issues. I read them anyway. Also, when Daredevil dropped into the crime scene, Daredevil is a lawyer. He's not a detective. What is he doing? He's supposed to hire a private detective like Spider-Woman or Hellcat. That's who's or Jessica Jones. Where is she? These are the people who are supposed to handle that for him. It's frustrating. I did appreciate the Billy Club action, though, when he took out Powell. Good thing he just ran his fingers across Heather's face this morning. Although I continue to find it a bit much that his super senses are so strong, including touch, that he can feel brush strokes. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. And with all those police combing through the crime scene before they left and he came in, Batman, they're there when Batman's there, right? So anyway, not one of those police people noticed the blood paintings of Heather until after Daredevil found them. They're making Detective Kim look bad. By the way, wasn't she a hostage negotiator? Sloppy! I don't mind if she's a regular detective, but why did they establish her as a hostage negotiator? I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was like, I remember her saying it was their day off, so she was maybe filling in for hostage negotiations, but it was very sloppy. All right, and speaking of sloppy, how did Fisk not say to anyone? I mean, he wouldn't say it to Pal, but how did he not bring it up to Buck and or Vanessa That's our couples therapist. What a disturbing coincidence. I mean, Fisk is a paranoid man, rightfully so. He should be concerned. Back to Daredevil's billy clubs. How the heck did he impale Muse on them? Does he have I think he has a grappling hook on them that can be deployed so he can swing from buildings. But in the comics, it's just a hook. In fact, it's not just a hook, but the top part of his cane. And so he's actually always carrying his billy clubs around with him. And the show hasn't done that. He has a traditional sightseeing cane and not one that double. So I didn't really think about it before, but I do wish that they did the cane properly. The fight scene, the whole scene with Muse at Heather's office, it was pretty good, but I feel like the whole thing would have been better and certainly felt more organic if we'd seen a couple of their earlier sessions. I mean, we saw him at the signing, but that's it. And so again, sloppy, just not taking the time. And they have 9 episodes that are a little bit longer than your typical Disney Plus episode, so I just don't think they're using the time they have well. The fight scene, so at first I thought Muse was uncharacteristically pulling his punches when he merely wrote his name in ink on Heather's arm. I was like, whoa, come on, buddy. You're supposed to be a gruesome Batman-level type villain. But he made up for it when he made that incredibly long and deep cut into her arm that was so disturbing. I don't know what the plan was there. I thought maybe he was going to stick that. I guess that tube was just to get the blood to come out faster, but I thought he was going to stick that tube directly into her arm without any device. I was just disturbed, and that's what you're supposed to feel with Muse. Who knows what art project he had in mind, although it seemed he was maybe going to kidnap her and carry her out in that tarp, and I guess he didn't care if she bled out because that's what he does to all of his victims. But instead, just like Daredevil, as we said, got artistic in Fisk's penthouse, here he continues to express himself with anger. But even still, although he tried to take Bullseye's life in the first episode, as revenge for what happened to Foggy, it's Vanessa who shoots Muse dead before fainting from blood loss. And that was her coolest, most comic book moment of the show yet. Speaking of comic book artists, that shot reminded me very much, and her pose reminded me very much of Sarah Essen in Year One. True comic book fans know what I'm talking about. Do you ever, when you're watching this kind of content, do you ever make the jump to famous panels that you've seen? It was very effective in X-Men 97 when they recreated a lot of really famous panels. While Heather didn't know that Bastion Cooper, what a name, didn't know that he was Muse until he literally drew his mask in his own blood before her, she seems to be figuring out that Matt Murdock is at least living a double life. How long can Matt distract her with smooches? Probably a pretty decent amount of time. That shower shot, the first shower shot, by the way, was very nice. Good thing he rinsed off all the blood before she joined him. Although, again, how does he know there's any blood there and then it's all gone? Because he's blind. I don't think they do enough with that either. Although it was a very clever cover when he was like, the bruises are from bumping into things, Heather, an unfortunate reality for blind people. And he tried to shame her into leaving him alone. It was a good cover, but Vanessa is not totally buying it. In fact, even if what he's saying is true, she wonders if maybe it's self-harm. And I gotta say, I was like, you might be onto something there, Heather. I think in a way Matt Murdock is self-harming himself with his rage, always punishing himself. So that's some pretty good psychiatry there, Heather. I appreciated seeing that she was maybe somewhat good at her job. Matt also tells her that he misses his old life and that this new one, so carefully curated, so pristine, so devoid of all aspects of his former life, feels fake to him. It feels fake to us too, Matt. This does not feel like your old show. It doesn't feel very much, in my opinion, like the character. Kingpin feels like Kingpin. Daredevil, I'm still totally not feeling it. Daredevil Born Again sometimes might as well be called Daredevil Light. Ooh, I said it. I said it because it's true. By the way, I thought it was very funny when Heather screamed at Muse that anyone who wears a mask is a coward, and then Daredevil crashed through the window to save her. She's like, ooh, not you, Daredevil. I wasn't talking about you. Sorry. The fight scene between Daredevil and Muse was kind of weak. What did you think of it? I mean, there were so many editing cuts. There was one shot when they literally just had I think it was Daredevil held his arm up and Muse kicked it and then they cut away. And it just seemed so much like they were like, okay, in this shot, he kicks your arm. And that was all that it was. And I'm like, you can't do an extended fight sequence without having to have multiple cuts. They didn't have that problem on the Netflix show. Charlie Cox has proved on that show, a former show, that he's very good at doing his own stunts. And they have experienced stunt people to be stand-ins. So why don't these fights look better? Great fights should be a hallmark of the Daredevil show, as it was with the first, incarnation on Netflix. I found it very odd. Did you find that jarring at all? I know you found it jarring in other sequences, other fight scenes in this, in Daredevil Born Again. But this one, I think, was like, and they just set up that Muse was so good at fighting. It was just weird. Also, Daredevil better stop talking to people in his Matt Murdock voice. Everybody makes fun of Batman for doing a deep voice, but as you can see, it's necessary. Vanessa, Heather heard Daredevil say her name, and Angela might make the connection as well. I really like the actress playing Angela, by the way, Camila Rodriguez. I wonder how long it's going to take her for her to put that amulet on. I hope she puts it on by the end of the season. She's like, I tried it with just my cell phone, and surprise, surprise, it was not enough. Finally, I liked the opening of this episode where Fisk says he sees a city gripped by fear of Muse. But of course, famously, Daredevil is called the man without fear. They should focus on that a bit more. I think all the guilt and rage is starting to feel a bit repetitive. It's like, we've done it. Daredevil is about Hell's Kitchen. I can't believe I have to outline this for the show. Daredevil is about Hell's Kitchen, the legal system, the Catholic Church, and brawlers, like his father was. If I wanted to add another one, it would be Matt being a huge flirt. Matt really gets around. But that's what Daredevil is supposed to be. Would you add anything else? And I'm frustrated that the writers of this show don't seem to realize that. Do they? I mean, sometimes Marvel tells their people they don't need to read the comics, and sometimes I feel maybe that was a directive that was given here. What do you think? Again, just 2 episodes left. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.